Sure. So I'm just going to fly through a little bit about what is this NetSquared thing. And as I said, we'll just lay some groundwork for you guys to actually go and do the real events and be amazing. So, as I said, my name's Eli. I come from glamorous, faraway Vancouver. And I have been doing this Net Tuesday thing as a volunteer in Vancouver for the last 4 years and 1 month, according to LinkedIn, which I looked at earlier today. God bless it. It's very helpful. Hopefully they don't charge me one day. And let me say, where do I want to go from there? And about a year ago, I stepped into a new role, which is to be the global coordinator for all of these Net Tuesday groups. They're often called NetSquared groups as well. And there are about 50 of them scattered across 20 countries in this world, and I get to be essentially their cheerleader. So me with virtual pom-poms is usually what you're going to see. Why not? Look at that. Fancy logo, 2 colors. You're loving it. So NetSquared, you're like, never heard of that. What's that thing? And you're right. No one's ever heard of it unless you've actually stumbled into one of these 50 meetup groups scattered across the world. My day gig is funded by TechSoup Global, which is a San Francisco nonprofit that manages software donations on behalf of large companies to other nonprofits. There's also a version in Canada called TechSoup Canada. So if you are a nonprofit or especially a charitable nonprofit, they give you software for like a 90% discount. Kind of a killer deal. So if you are currently paying for your copy of Microsoft Word, we should stop doing that if you're a charity because we really want to save you money. And Microsoft just wants to not have people call them 100 times a day saying like, I'm a great organization, like donate something to me. They're like, we got a place, go there. As I said, we are friggin' everywhere except apparently China and Russia. I don't know, there's a big gap and it makes me sad. So if you've got Russian friends or friends who are somewhere in the interior of China, talk to me, because it'll make me happier if I just had like a little pin over here, because it feels lopsided. It makes me sad. So why are we here? Like, why does NetSquared exist? And I think it exists because in the olden days, if you were a nonprofit and you wanted to do fun things with technology, you essentially had to be Uncle Scrooge. You needed to have a big money bin that you swam around in and had adventures in and all that good stuff. And that was the status quo for a long time. But as we know, the world is changing. And suddenly, money is no longer the big barrier to nonprofits doing fun things with technology and actually furthering their mission. Instead, of course, there is this giant, terrible knowledge gap. So we all get caught up right here because we're all like, technology, oh my God, like what if we do it wrong? Everyone will make fun of us, and so we get paralyzed. And so the NetSquared mission is to bring really practical, everyday tips and case studies to nonprofits to get them past the point of paralysis. And say, actually, there is a lot of useful things that can apply to your work, and you don't necessarily need an expert to start on that, although, of course, there are experts in this room who would, for a small fee, be delighted to take you on a bigger journey. But you know, as I always say, and I'm going to be cheesy here, journey always begins with that first step. And so think of us as the place just to make that first step a little bit less terrifying. And so our model for making that first step less terrifying is really community-centered. Because we've all been to conferences, and what we tend to find, of course, with conferences is that they're like the medicine show. They come, they do razzle dazzle, like there's song, there's dance, and then they go away. And as Dan was saying, that isn't how we're going to build community. That's not how we're going to build sustainability within our communities of practice. And so what we're really looking to do is create a space where we as a peer group of nonprofit tech folk and those who are curious about that can come together, learn from each other, and really start building a community who can lean on each other. And so we basically have two core principles for what makes a NetSquared group. So a NetSquared event is not a webinar. It means to be a NetSquared event, you need to actually have face-to-face. And so we're here, and I can't believe we actually have more people than are on the meetup page. We're only supposed to have 20 people there, and I see more than that here. If you haven't joined the meetup yet, you should. It's a great way to find out about what's happening next. But I am just really amazingly tickled about the powers of the organizers who really gather this community with really no guarantee that anything's going to be awesome. This leap of faith is really amazing. So Dan, Ben, other organizers, Noah, big ups. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. It's really, I think we already have some community builders here. So I'm really jazzed about what's going to happen here in Victoria. So as I said, face-to-face is what we're all about here. And then the other part is regularity. I wasn't sure if that joke was going to go well or not. So regularity is important. As I said, a conference comes, and there's a big razzle-dazzle, and then they leave town. Which means, where do you go for the follow-up questions? Where do you go to say, okay, I tried that thing you were talking about, but then I got stuck halfway through. How do I continue through? So once a month is amazing, but we certainly encourage our folk to come together at least once a quarter, just because these face-to-face moments are where you sort of have those informal, remember you said that crazy thing? Well, I tried that crazy thing and it kind of worked. So it's a place for us to have those conversations. I don't know. So what do you want your meetup to look like? So I say it needs to be face-to-face, and it needs to be in a recurring basis. But what it actually looks like, how that manifests, is very different in every city we go to. And so, of course, some cities like to party. It seems very stereotypical, but the New Orleans group has only one kind of meetup, and it is this kind of meetup. It is the let's pound shots and talk about nonprofit tech stuff, and hopefully we'll remember it in the morning kind of meetups. That is definitely one approach to come at that, and I like to do one of those once a year, just so we can, bond in a different way in Vancouver. I don't know, Victoria seems like a staid town. You're not going to be up for that, though. You guys are boring. So this is what we're going to do in Victoria, unless you guys want to prove me wrong. So you can also do workshops and presentations. I got some photos of people in Vancouver. Look at all these people, so attentive, learning, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. It's inspiring. So that's another way. You can do very formal presentations. Or you can go for the ridiculous. So one of the event formats that came out of our organizers in the United Kingdom is what they call the social media surgery. And so that is basically their clever way of putting a brand to the idea of just creating a help desk. So at a social media surgery, people do not always dress up, but I encourage it, and I will mail you a dress-up kit should you actually decide to hold a social media surgery. But what you do is basically you just create a whole bunch of tables, you pour some tea and biscuits, because it's something that came out of the UK, of course, and basically people get half-hour appointments to bring any kind of question to some volunteer surgeons or doctors, since we share the same language, but not really. And so that's another way for us to come together. Other people have got crazy formats where they do crowdsourcing change, where they actually identify like 3 different groups, and they come and they give like a 10-minute description of like, well, this is what we're all about. And then the crowd sort of, shouts out their ideas. Like, we think like this is how you could solve your problem. Or actually, Ben's been involved in a couple where you come and like basically just like show off a tool that is like tickling your fancy. Can I put you on the spot, in fact?
You bet.
Talk about it.
Like the one I hosted?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to spend about 45 minutes sort of going through my toolkit of what I use as a marketer, and allowed people to give sort of very specific questions at the end. I think one of the biggest values of saying, hey, we may have all heard of this tool, and I use it and endorse it, and here's how I apply it for nonprofits, and then questions back before you actually can like waste your time being curious yourself.
So basically what you're getting away from that is we are non-prescriptive in what a NetSquared event can look like. As long as I said, you guys are getting together and like maybe not sweating on each other, but getting close. But yeah, really, why do we do these events? One, because I want to build obviously these sustainable nonprofit tech communities, because my mothership organization gives away software and support, but they know they have no capacity to actually support people across the globe. That doesn't work. And so the model is, can we build these autonomous community support hubs? Why should we come together beyond like, let's support the overall community? Of course, it's because as nonprofit tech folk, sometimes we may be a little bit isolated in our organizations. You may be like on a lead now where everyone's all like young and tech savvy, but I would say for many of us, hands up if you are in this place where everyone thinks you're a little bit crazy and they don't quite get what you really do. Only one of you. All right. Actually, a couple more people. And that slowly changes as the internet is gobbling up everything. But I do think there's a real place for us to come together, just to get together and party, Bill and Ted style. And of course, sometimes we also just need to commiserate together, which is sometimes it's therapeutic to get together and weep over board members who maybe just don't have the same world vision or view that we have, or campaigns that we were so excited about that totally failed. Sometimes it's good to just have a place to talk it through. And think of this as your therapy session. But as Dan said, look, this is not an exercise in colonialism. This is not me from Vancouver, marching in saying well, this is how we do it in the big city, and this is the only proper way to do it. Whatever. Victoria is its own place, and I do not understand you. You are mysterious creatures to me. And the only people who is hopefully going to get you is you. So this needs to be driven by your needs, your wants. You know what your organizations are struggling with. You know what the broader community needs. So I should get out of the way. And
spell check, by the way.
Shh. I didn't see anything. I don't know what you're talking about.